So if a parent is very happy, or family is happy that their kid is sailing, so the kid will also have that an amazing positive energy, will go to the club all the time smiling and so on, being happy. But if at some point the situation is a little bit, tricky, difficult, and you are starting to chat about maybe we shouldn't be sending you to the club, whatever the reason is. So remember that the kid will transfer, it's in every sport, the kid will transfer that emotions inside. And especially in the very beginning of the career, it's very, very important for the parent to talk properly with the coach. So communicate with the coach, because kid is a kid, right? So of course, she or he will have a lot of emotions on his own, and will have her own decisions and mind thinking and ideas. But the big decisions, like regarding the career, or buying a new equipment, or staying in, changing the club, or changing a coach, whatever, that's particularly between coach and the parent. So it's very, very good to see where that communication isn't okay. Then there you have the junior stage, which is a little bit different, and the pro senior. So by going to the next slide, you will see how I'm actually trying to show you the differences in communication and the differences in behavior, because you cannot say that the coach will be, or the parent should act the same way on each of those stages. No, it's completely different. So when you're a junior, communication and relation is different. When you're a pro, it's completely different. So I would like you today to understand what the biggest differences are. So let's go to the next slide, please. So let's start with the parent sailor relationship, with like having in mind that those stages, right? So in the beginning, sailing is more fun and play. So don't destroy the mood, as we discussed. Parents should not transfer their high expectations on their kids, never. And that's actually what happens quite a lot. So I've been in that situation as well, a little bit, because my father liked when I was winning. He was very happy when I was winning. When I wasn't winning, he was like, so it wasn't so easy. He was a very good friend, and he always supported me, always. But I could feel his emotions. As I said, that whatever is there in the family is transferred with the kid. So when I was sailing, I felt my father like looking from my shoulder a little bit. He was very happy when I did good. He was like almost in joy. Excuse me. But when things got bad, he was a little bit upset. So when I was upset because I didn't do good in sailing, because I did some mistakes, then I looked at my father, who was also a little bit sad, and that was like, climbing up the hill, right? So it wasn't exactly like I think the best relation is. So whenever it's good, no, you are happy, but whenever it's bad, or whenever it's a little bit difficult, then nothing is happening, right? So the expression on the parent face is like, no worry, it's just fun, right? It's just for you. It's good that you are doing it, and I'm very happy that you are doing it. Don't worry. If it's like this, then it's super. If it's, oh, you could do better, it's already a little bit too much from the parent. And quite important aspect is the financial capabilities of the parent. So it wasn't my side, because as I said, my father and mom, they were always supporting me. Very long way. I had big support from their part, but I saw parents which were actually talking a lot about money. And we know that the sailing is very expensive, and the clubs and the coaches and a society and association is doing whatever they can to help, especially the kids, to be not to be burdened with the financial spending, but it's still there, right? Sometimes you just have to buy something on your own, maybe one block, maybe a wind device, whatever. But sometimes you have to spend a little bit of money So telling your kid that actually, you know, you have to do this because I gave you money to buy that equipment, it's not a good thing. It's either it should be the parent decision. Again, if you put your kid into a sailing, then you know what you are signing in. Like, you sign a contract. Sailing is not football, it's not cricket. You cannot just do it on free air, right, with a stick and a ball. You have to have equipment, you have to have safety gear, you have to have harnesses, whatever there is, you have to have it, because otherwise it's pointless. You have to have a boat. Most of the time it's provided by the coaches and society, association, and club. But sometimes, as I said, you have to put a little bit in it. It's difficult, I know, but it shouldn't be, the kid shouldn't be burdened. The kid shouldn't be burdened like, I spend so much money on you, so now you have to behave. No, it's not a good attitude. Parent has a significant impact on all decisions, sailors' motivation, and awareness. It's a little bit, as we already discussed, and it's very, very easy to see. Like, whenever my friends, when I was a kid, whenever my friends had any difficult argument with their parents, so when they appeared in the club, I saw it. So I was like, hey, what's happened? What's going on? Oh, you know, my dad told me that I'm not doing well enough, and I think I'm not going to be competing next year. Think about it. It's actually, again, it's a burden on the kid. So if you are making any big changes, and if you know that you are not capable as a parent to endure career and so on, then make it clear to the kid that at some point, but be very gentle. Be very gentle, and it's difficult for the kid to have that on the shoulder at all time. So every emotion from a parent travels with the sailor. A discouraging word can damage sailor's attitude, and a positive one can last years. Oh, that's true. So whenever you say to your kid, oh, you look so good on that boat, you did so well today, like, was it nice to do that racing, whatever, that emotion travels with the kid. It's not like it doesn't end in one day. Like, I remember what my coach told me, what my parents told me in particular days in racing, in regattas, and I still have it in mind, like those, especially those good moments. And you treasure it. Those moments are the most treasure memory you can have, and I encourage you to have as many of those positive emotions as possible. Going to the junior, so you still sailing, you like sailing, right? Because you have that, but it's starting to get a little bit more serious, because probably you have also school, you start to be having responsibilities more in the club and also more in the life, and then the relation changes. So then the relation changes in the way that actually parent has to talk more. So parent has to know the feelings of the junior. So be very clear. There has to be a big transparency. The same for the coach, right? Because your career is now open. So the paths you can take are, there are plenty of them. So making a decision is an important moment, is an important place. And you can do that only by being aware. So when there's good communication between parent, coach, and the sailing. Which I like here to point out is the parent can be this passionate judge of things, because junior has a lot of emotion, because junior is getting, you know, from the kid that period of I don't know how to say it in English, like when you say no, right? So junior is, even in sailing, it will be the same. So the kid's starting to grow up, and it's getting to it's tricking your mind as well. So sometimes a parent is a very nice, dispassionate judge of things, because junior has a lot of emotions inside, and he's very active. Sometimes he's angry, he's depressed, or he's happy or joyful, and you don't actually know which one is which. And the parent, looking from the side, hearing what the junior can tell you, you can be that good judge, and you can give that nice advices. When you're moving to the pro stage, pro senior, now it's more about the job now. So with with the job, it's not only a hobby, right? Because you are old, so now it's the time. So you actually also think about your life in the future. If you decide to stay in sailing, it means you almost love it, or you really find sailing as a way of life. But that also means responsibilities, right? So again, next stage and next part of communication. So now let's go to the next slide. So now the same stages, I would like to show you differences in coaches behavior. So when you were a kid, so I'm not going to go through all of those characteristics because we don't have time enough. But I want to tell you that story. So now, when I was a kid, I had a very nice coach who treated me almost like a son. And I love that. He was giving me a lot of space. He was giving me beautiful teachings, but he was also gentle, kind. He was very experienced, very knowledgeable, and he was a gentleman. He was a gentleman on his own. And then as a kid, I love that. I wanted to be as my coach. I wanted to become my coach. So I wanted to make everything possible in the way that my coach is happy as well. So I wanted to make my coach satisfied. But he never screamed at me. He was always giving me beautiful examples, right? I remember one of the most astonishing things when we actually every morning in the 2-week training camp, we were sand jumping. So we stood in a place and then we jumped on the sand and we were making marks and measuring the distance. You will ask, why did we do it? We didn't know as well. At some point, we were wondering why our coach asked us to jump in the sand, and he's measuring it every day. And then in the end, we realized that day after day, every day in the morning, we made a difference. That was a 2 centimeter difference, 5 centimeter difference. And then in the end, after only 2 weeks, we realized that some of us jumped half a meter more because of the technique, because of approach, because of attitude, and so on and so on. And that was one of very important lessons to me as a kid, that actually when you think about something, when you push and when you work hard, then everything is possible. So I think that in the young period and when you were a child, the coach is very, very, his attitude is very important. It's like, it can almost like it can build the psycho of the kid. It can just be a very nice process and you can build up a very nice mind, or you can just put some bad things in it and then next stages will also be bad. So when I left Optimist, I felt like nothing is impossible. I felt that the sailing world is just open because my coach taught me that hard work pays off. And that if I'm studying, if I'm learning, I will become a better man. And that was really, really, really something. That was awesome. Like, to me, I will always give that coach as an example, because, and despite of me thinking about him as an awesome guy, he has plenty of medals on his account, plenty, world, European medals. So he just know how to deal with kids, with people, with adults as well. But to me, again, that was a very, very important lesson. And I would always like to be as that particular example, because he was the guy to actually open our minds. And I remember also one story when he was teaching us to eat vegetables. Kids should eat vegetables and should eat healthy stuff, right? But how to do it? It's not tasting well, right? Kids like to drink Coca-Cola or eat sweets. And I remember one morning when he actually, after the kid said he's not going to eat that vegetable in the morning and as a breakfast, coach wasn't screaming. He wasn't like pointing out and you have to do it because we will not go on the water and so on. No, he just took a magazine, like a newspaper. He put on his glasses because he was 50 something. So he put on his glasses And he just started to read, sipping his coffee. And we other kids, we were doing our stuff, preparing for training in the afternoon and so on. And he was sitting with that one kid in the table saying nothing. He just said, you will go out, you will leave the table when you eat that veggie. And in the kid's mind, the beginning is like, yeah, I will show you, right? I will show you. No way, I'm not gonna eat that. And he actually spent 1.5 hours drinking his coffee, reading a magazine, waiting for that kid, no words needed. In the end, kid started to cry, my friend, like, he was sobbing. And in the end, he ate that vegetable. Because, and the end of the story, finish. But there was no bad emotion. There was no, nothing else than just a proper, decent example. Because the coach knew that it's important for the kid to eat that veggie, to learn to eat vitamins and so on and so on. But the way how he approached it, right? You can either be on top and you can either scream, you can either like shout or do or you can be very inspiring, or you can be that mentor thing. Okay, and now skipping a little bit the junior and going to pro. So now would you like the same scenario to be happening when you are pro senior sailor? Do you even can imagine a situation that you are having a dinner with your coach and the coach is saying, you have to eat that veggie, and you are 25 years, you have a kid, you have a wife, and your coach is saying you have to eat that, and you are like, what? What are you saying? So that relation is very, very different, and the coach and also parent should understand when it changes. We cannot stay in the kid stage for all. We cannot stay in the junior. So it's very important, particularly for the coach, to understand where you have that difference, where you should act as a little bit more as a mentor than a teacher. Because teacher, if you're going to the school, right, and you don't make your homework, then the teacher will give you one, I don't know, you probably have ABC, but in Poland you have 1 to 5. 5 is good, 1 is bad, so you have 1, and then you're doing bad, and then after some time you have 1, 1, 1, then you will not go to the next class. If you were a senior sailor, then coach cannot act like, I will give you 1. So what? So senior will say, okay, give it, but I don't give a damn, right? So it has to be it's difficult. It's not so easy, but the relation has to change. It has to be more about respect. It has to be more about trust, right? So if the coach would tell that senior sailor, like, you have to eat that veggie, there would have to be a very strong argument, like particularly strong argument that you have to eat it, maybe. But in other reason, there's that kind of conversation is pointless. So I'm looking at the characteristics, inspiring awareness. Oh, body. The second from the bottom, the body thing. So the same. When you are kid and you have a coach cannot be your buddy, right? You not go for a beer. You not go even for a dinner together, right? You not chat about things because he's a kid. You are an adult normally. But when you are a senior, so that kind of relation also starts to get, I'm not saying it's good to go for a beer with coach and sailor, but sometimes it's needed actually, especially when you are working for a long period of time and you are a little bit stressed out, or there was a very long month training camp, then it's good actually to go and to release those tension emotions and just talk like men or women, right? Easily, just putting aside sailing and just so you actually coach can learn more about what's inside sailor's head then, because every day in the training, so sailor is focused, you see that tension and he's focusing on training, but then in the end, after that month, when you go for that supper, whatever, maybe your sailor will open. So being a buddy, like a little bit like, hey, tell me what's inside your head? How do you feel now, right? What was it a good month? And there's a difference in asking that in the supper, or just doing like, did you like that month? Was it nice? Or being still a teacher and ask the same question like, okay, so now I would like to hear, what do you say about that month? Was it good? Difference, right? So when you ask that question, you'll probably hear, even if you hear answer, yes, yes, it was good. So it will be a little bit forced, right? So someone will tell you that answer because you want that answer, you need it. But if you are actually drinking Coca-Cola, tea, coffee, and you are just chatting, then if someone says that month training was super, different, right? So it's coming from within. So again, that relation coach sailor is different, especially when you take that kid and senior thing. In junior, it depends. It depends. Sometimes it's good to be still a teacher, like to be very strict, and you have to do it. You have to do it. You need to wake up and so on. But sometimes it's already good to change your attitude more for being a mentor. So if you were a junior, for example, right? Junior like examples. He likes examples. So if a coach reads a book, if a coach runs in the morning, if a coach take care of his equipment, and junior sees it, so he's like, I should do the same. Like my coach is doing it, and he's older than I'm, so I should actually go running in the morning. He should think that way. If he's not thinking that way after some time, then it means his attitude is wrong. And then again, you need to reshuffle all the communication. But normally it should be like that. So then being that mentor part, trying to be an example is a good way to actually inspire junior. But again, if you are 50-year-old and you are teaching pro seniors, so being an example doesn't always mean that you have to wake up in the morning and go running. Maybe if you can, it's good, but then it matters what you have in mind, right? But senior will appreciate that mindset, and he will understand that this is what the coach has in mind is priceless. But junior, it's again the emotions, right? That getting older. So junior is also looking. He needs to see that the coach is actually doing what he's saying. So if a coach says a healthy body is important, and he's not doing anything for his body, then the junior will see that and he will say, so why should I keep my body fit if my coach is not? It's not always like this, but it's still better to at least for a coach to understand those typical stages. Okay, long chat. Next slide. Oh, it's topic is a little bit. This is, I think we know, but sometimes parent in the process is not rewarded. He's not mentioned as a person who is responsible for the success. And I think it's very necessary to point out that every piece of the machine, which is the team, is important. So whenever coach sees that the parent has a good influence on the kid, and vice versa. So if the parent sees that the coach has a very good influence on the kid, you should talk about it. So you should actually praise. You should say, that was a really good job, or thank you for that, or thank you for this. So I will tell you a story again, not from my own background, but my coach friend at the moment, who is still coaching, had a situation that after half a year of training, one of his sailors was completely out of the sheen, out of the working of the planning and of the activities and so on. He was lazy. He was doing almost nothing. And even though that they were talking, so coach and the sailor, they were like, listen, you should be working a little bit harder because look, your friends are working, you are not. And we had an agreement, right? We had an agreement, so you should be doing it. But he was like, I don't care. So after half a year of that process, the coach had a little bit more serious talk with the sailor, and he actually told him that, listen, I will give you a last chance. You should be actually thrown away from the team because you are not working. You're not trying hard enough, and not by trying hard enough. He didn't mean results. He just meant attitude. He just meant you're not pushing. You're not punctual. you are not there, right? So you are taking a spot for a kid or for a sailor, whatever, junior man, junior, senior woman, uh, you're taking a spot for some other person who actually might be very ambitious and would like to be here in your spot, but you're just taking the spot and you're doing nothing. So I will give you a last chance. I'm giving you a last chance to stay in the team. So from now on, please show me your attitude and show me that you want to work. What happened was that next day, mother of that kid, came to the club, and by shouting, very, very much shouting, she was actually saying that she's taking that coach to the court because he is abusing her kid. Ridiculous, right? I mean, and they actually ended up in being in a court. So if when I heard that story, I was like, what? It's unbelievable, but it's true. And I think it's because those parents, they never actually chatted with that coach before. So they let things be. They let just, okay, the kid just went to the club, did his job. I mean, did whatever he's doing in the club, but the parent was not interested enough. So because if she would be talking with the coach and coach would be talking with that mom inside of those 6 months, then everything will be clear, right? Mom would also know. Mom will be there to understand coach's feelings, and everything will be fine. But because there was no, between mom and the coach, there was no communication at all since, I mean, for 6 months, then suddenly mom, after that stage when everything is so beautiful, there are flowers and we are so happy, suddenly she's hearing that her son is sobbing, he's crying, and he's saying that coach is abusing him. You know, then she as a parent is actually depressed and she's very angry and she's accusing that coach of being that bad guy. So it's an example of communication. And I think it's also important for the coach to go with that communication, because even if the parent doesn't want to, you should be actually trying to stay in reach. It's difficult. In some moments it's difficult. Sometimes it's impossible, but more senior you get, so more pro you get, maybe that talk is less, because you can actually deal with an adult person, right? When I am speaking to a 25-year-old man or woman, I'm not thinking about maybe I should go and talk with their parents, right? Because they are adult already. So I'm talking to an adult person and I don't need to go to mom and dad. But if you're speaking to a 16, 17, 18-year-old who is still living with their family and so on, maybe it's a good thing to go a little bit and chat with the parent. That would be my suggestion. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Common parental mistakes. Talking about money, we discussed. Transferring expectations on emotions on a kid, we discussed. Shouting instead of smiling. Oh, like look at that mom, right? I think the picture says more than I need to explain. It's everything there. So look at those expressions of the parents, like they are probably watching some football match and they're already like their faces it's quite moody. And that mom, is she actually saying like, "Yay, good job," or she's saying, "What are you doing?" So think about it. It's a very important process that the parent has a big impact on the kid, and being positive, it's everything that the kid or the sailor actually wants. So communicate again. Competing with other parents, which child is better? Oh, that happens a lot. Like my kid did that, my kid did that. My kid goes to better school than yours. It's not the way, because you remember that again, it goes with the kid. So the kid feels everything that you are speaking about at home, and it's just so clear to see. The coach will see it immediately when a kid comes to the club, right? And the kid has his eyes in the floor and walking like the air just collapsed, sky just collapsed on him. So the coach already knows something happened at home. burdening the kid with too much responsibilities, especially in that beginning, so optimist, laser, 420, whatever you're doing in the beginning, it has to be fun. Come on. Later on, there comes more expectations. That's your goal. You want to become better sailor. So results getting in the way. But in the beginning, it has to be fun. You have to feel the air on your face. You have to like the nature that you are spending time in, right? So you're going on the water, you're sailing with, you are taking your time in the fresh air. It's good. So it's very positive. And to all parents, I will say now, if there are parents listening us at the moment, I will say one thing. Sailing is difficult. It's a multitask sport, but it's really, really good for your kid to be sailing, because sailing teaches plenty of good, positive, not emotions, but behavior. So it teaches kid a good behaving. Probably you heard that phrase that sailing is for gentlemen. And I actually personally believe in it, that sailing is a sport for gentlemen. I'm not saying any other sport is not, but the history of sailing is actually a little bit, you have that example that sailing is teaching, especially young people, plenty of the good tips. It gives good life tips to a kid. So have you ever, I will ask you a question to have an example, as have you ever approached a really good and successful sailor who or which was cocky, like, I'm so great, I'm so famous, I'm a celebrity? No, I don't know. I have plenty of friends, and I have no idea who to point out to be that example. Like to be, I'm so good, I'm so great. No, because sailing teaches you to being humble. It's very good school of life. And if you look at other sports, right? So there's more money in it. So when it's money, your mind is a little bit, you're earning more than average people, so you're better, right? So sometimes other sports have that negative brain impact, but sailing, again, I've never seen a bad impact on the kid. Especially what can be a bad impact is exactly what we just discussed, so the communication and relations, because the kid can be injured if the coach is bullying him, if the coach doesn't pay attention that in the team there is a bad atmosphere, right? So then that might be negative. Then it might be actually something damaging for the kid. But normally it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I didn't see too many of that kind of situations to happen. So sailing is good. Sailing is a good sport. It's a good school of life. Next slide, please. So just we are almost getting to finish. Sailor coach team. So the relation just particular between sailors and coaches. I hope we all understand that older the sailor gets, it's difficult. So because when you're a kid, you're young, you're junior, coach always can say, you have to do it because it's good for you. And then explain later on if whatever. Sometimes you will just have to say you'd have to do it because you have to do it. And the coaches can make that happen. But if the sailor gets older, so how can you say to a 30-year-old guy, like, do it? And then there's a question, but why? And the coach is just, you have to do it because you have to do it. That's ridiculous, right? So older you get, again, communication change. You have to explain more, you have to chat more. That body attitude is there. So I had a perfect example of me. When I entered 49er, I was completely messed up. I was thinking the wrong way. I wasn't able, for example, I wasn't able to take on my chest. So one of my coach was trying to give me tips. Like, in the previous race, you actually acted, your tactics were bad because in that position, you should go with the fleet. And whenever he started to give me that good tip, I was already, but I thought, blah, blah, blah. So that communication for him, for the coach, was very difficult between me and him, because I was defending. I was already like putting a wall between ourselves, and I was like, no, but I did it because whatever the reason. So I wasn't taking the blame. I wasn't able to take that tip. I wasn't able to see exactly what's surrounding. So what he did, we spent at least 2 years with chatting. So he understood that it's going to be difficult to give me those tips in the beginning. So he first started to work with me as a person, and he started to tell me about that attitude. Like, Tom, if you're gonna be putting that wall in between us, right? I will never be able to help you. If you will not trust me, I will never be able to help you. And after some time, I realized that he's right, and he was very right. So the coach has also a great impact in senior, but it's a different approach, right? Because you will not be able to talk that way to a kid, because a kid is a kid, so he will not understand. The examples have to be different. But we actually, when I was 22, we actually went for coffees. He spent his private time to put it on myself, to change my mind. And there was a moment when I clicked, when I understood, and then it started to we started to get along. So from that point, our conversations were much different, because I was listening, I was taking his advices, and I actually trusted him much more than in the beginning. So I was like, okay, yeah. Oh, you think I did that wrong? Yeah, you're right. Okay, show me the example. And so the communication started to be proper one. And I can tell you, it's a long process. It's never a week, it's never a month. And the more sailors you have, it's more difficult, because everybody is different. Everybody has his own individuality, personality, characteristics, and feelings, right? Feelings. One person, for example, I like to be praised. You can say who didn't want to, who doesn't like to be praised, right? But I liked it. So whenever a coach will start, that was a good race. But actually, if you would like to improve, you can do that better. That's one thing. So that was already it, because he said, that was a good race, you did well, and yet you can improve. So I was already listening. I was like, yes, give me. If he would be, come on, you were seventh, but you could be easily fourth. You made that bad mistake. So that will, in my mind, that will be already, are you saying I didn't do well? I didn't work hard and so on? It's very individual. So it's very, very hard for the coach. Time is everything. So more you spend with the sailor, with the team, better you get. That's why it's good to have a long-term goals, because whenever you take people to get inside a team for 2 weeks, 1 month, it's difficult. They can teach you, of course, many things. They can be fresh and they can give you a perspective. But in the long-term goal, they will not look at the previous webinar of Sail Coach. I think you were present when Lily, right, the laser girl, the champion from 2012 London, right? So her coach was John Emmett, who was actually recently also in that webinar, John Emmett. And they're working with Lily for ages, for many years. So that process takes time. You need to know each other, because otherwise it's only about a couple of tips, but it's not about understanding. And now also, if there's no understanding, so at some stage of senior career, there will be no good advices, because if I don't know how I can impact, how I can act in that particular situation, then I will stay silent. I don't know what to say. Should I scream at him, or should I be like praising him, or should I be what? I don't know. So it's very important to work on that communication all the time. Next slide, please. Very important aspect. There are different types of coaches. You can also become one and share his knowledge to your younger friends. So plenty of examples here. Also in my career, like older friends, more experienced friends, they are sharing their knowledge to younger kids, and that's beautiful. Nothing to add. It's just beautiful. It should be like that. But sometimes if you don't cherish the positive atmosphere in the team, excuse me, if you don't build up that good atmosphere, and if you don't treat kids, juniors, seniors equally, then it might not be possible, because that those emotions in the team, they're a little bit more sparky. So you look at the friend and you're like, "Ah, I will not tell you because I don't like you." So then I think it's a bad thing, because actually instead of evolving, improving, you are staying in the same level. So it's a coach responsibility, especially in the senior stage, to work on that atmosphere. So everybody wants to say, "But I felt that," and you learn a lot. And if someone goes on the water and just is fixed on his own, and he doesn't want to share his knowledge, then he will not improve, and the team will not improve as well. So here, as you can see in the pictures, we have a beautiful example of kids teaching kids. Awesome. Next slide. You have examples, but I will not go through all of them. I just wanted to say here that a coach should be the guide what you stand for. So I've talked about it a little bit already, but again, to remind that whatever you say, it should be true with what you do. So whatever you think, you should act, because you are example. Parent is an example to the kid, right? And then coach is also an example to that kid. So those two pillars, those two pillars should be very proper. They are the most most cheerful, sorry, not cheerful, but most important example for the kid, junior and senior, the coach and the parent. So they should actually believe in what they are saying and then follow. So if I'm saying as a coach, an example, if I'm saying to my guys or girls in the team, you have to care for your equipment, and my rib is a mess. It's like completely, it's not working. Everything is just rusty and it's dirt. So am I giving a good example to them? No. So they might be doing still what I'm saying, but it's always better to follow with actions what you're actually teaching. And to the parent, the same, right? Because remember that example of the mom and the coach. So if the coach will communicate between, that's first, but then will give good examples. So he will invite that parent, for example, to a training or a meeting to have a chat. Then the parent will actually see that the coach know his job. The coach is trustworthy. We can trust the coach. He's doing a good job. So then that all bad scenario which I told you about probably wouldn't happen. Next slide. And listen. So that's I love to listen. I really enjoy when it doesn't matter if it's a kid, junior or senior, if they want to express themselves. So I can actually tell you that one of my bad habits, and I'm bad habits, and I'm working on it, is that sometimes I think I try to persuade too much, but I am listening. I am working on it as a coach at the moment as well, and I'm trying to listen even more to sailors, to parents, to coaches, because listening gives you knowledge. So if I'm talking at the moment, I'm just speaking my own mind. But if someone gives me an advice, then maybe that mind will be changed, right? If sailor gives me a good advice, then we can change. Then we can change the perspective for better. So that's a strong suggestion for everybody to listen to another person. My good friend of mine, actually, when we were chatting recently, he told me that there is that different type of culture in speaking. So in Poland, in Eastern, I'm giving an example in Europe. In Poland and Eastern countries, you have that attitude that whenever someone is speaking, so that the other person is like waiting just to interrupt, like, oh, I did the same. So he's not actually listening. he wants to get in the conversation. He wants to interrupt. He wants to say, I did the same, I was there, or whatever, his story. But in Western Europe, like Canada, Great Britain, and especially with very wise people, so that person will listen what that person is saying. Then that person will take time to think about it, and then will respond. So I'm not saying I'm doing it because, well, I'm very energetic. Sometimes I forget about it as well. And as I already said, it's a bad habit of mine, sometimes trying to a little bit too quickly react. But I know I'm making that mistake. And I hope we all agree that it's important to listen. So it will impact positively your communication with a parent and a kid, and also between a parent and a coach and so on. So I encourage you to communicate in the best possible way. Thank you very much. That's the end. If there are any questions, I'm eager to hear.
Yep. There are a few questions here for you, Tom. And how do I respond appropriately to the sailors' anxious or scared or angry feelings after a race or a regatta? And especially when, as a parent, I don't understand the sport. So the parent doesn't really understand the sport or its rules. So how do you understand, how do you deal with anger and anxiety and being scared at the end of the race or the end of the regatta?
Well, you may not like my answer, but I will give you what I think is right. You need to learn the sport a bit, because if you will learn the sport a bit, I'm not saying you have to be an expert, but if you at least go for 1 or 2 trainings, if you see what the kid junior do in the club, then you will understand her feeling better. And then you can actually ask better questions. So if you don't understand completely what's going on, and the kid was trying to tell you, in that race I'm not happy because that happened, and you have completely no idea what it is, how can you respond? So what your answer would be, don't worry, or no, it doesn't matter, but it does matter for the kid probably. So the best way to go along with that question is to learn a little bit more, and then try to listen from the sailor's perspective in aware mode.
Okay, so leads me to the next question, and that is sometimes parents will not have the capability of learning the sport, but if you go by your advice, you want the parents to learn a little bit about the rules and about the sport. That would end up with half knowledge, and it may end up with learning Google and learning from somewhere else or by hearsay or from other sailors, and that might conflict with the advice of the coach. So how would you deal with the situation where the advice of the coach, that of the parent, is conflicting because the parent has only half knowledge?
Excuse me? There was some glitch in connection, but I think I understood. So the question is, what if the parent is not getting along with the coach?
No. If the parent, and you're saying the parent should learn a little bit about the sport, but if the parent learns a bit about the sport but has only half knowledge, and sometimes as a consequence of which the parent's knowledge may just turn out to be in conflict with that of the coach, because the parent's knowledge is half and the coach's knowledge is much higher.
It's not about learning to give tips. It's not about learning to give tips, because coach is for that. It's about learning to ask better questions, for the kid, for the junior, to have that feeling that actually the parent cares. It's the same as now we have that attitude in the world that you can actually give a phone to a kid, right? Play. Or you can go with the kid and play on your own. It's a little bit like that. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but it's like that. So if I'm not saying you have to be giving him particularly experienced tips with sailing,
sure.
I'm saying to take your time in the club and see what the kid is doing. And then even when the kid is, I don't like that, so you actually picture it, right? And you can ask better questions.
Sure. Should we go for multiple coaches or stick to just one single coach?
I worked with, in long-term period, I worked with 3. but it was in, I think, long, wait, sorry, I have to think about it. There should be a long-term relation with the coach if you have a goal together and so on, but it's very good, and it's very refreshing, and it's very healthy to invite other coaches as well for short periods, for actions, training camps, and so on. It's very good.
For a sailor, accepting defeat is hard, and the feeling of discouragement that sets in. You feel discouraged after you've lost a race, or you've lost a regatta. How do I help my child get through that crisis?
Remember when we discussed mental strength? So you can all the time stick to the way of work and devotion. If your kid works hard and put his time and heart on the line, then nothing else matters. The result is just the result. It's if you are sad, you can always have a lot of, if the kid is sad, you will always have a lot of good vibrations by just the path. So you can say, don't worry, that those regatta were not meant for you. But look, you spent so much nice time. You met your friends. You went for a nice event venue. It's beautiful. Cherish that, right? So there's always, the result is one part of sailing, but there's so many other things which are also very positive. So we should stick to those positive ones. Result will come at some point. If it doesn't, it's longer answer, but if it doesn't, then at some point, maybe you will have to communicate with parents and the kid, because sometimes not all of us are meant to be top sailors, right? I have plenty of friends who are amazing people, but they're not meant to be the top. At some point, and that's to step in. Remember that this passionate judge, right? So that's where you have to, that was a beautiful time, beautiful 10 years, but maybe now you should focus on studying. But it has to be, that is very gentle and delicate, because remember that kid spent 10 years of work. So that conversation has to be it should come from a sailor at least, right? Like sailor should start that, maybe.
How do parents manage the balancing act between sailing and education? In the world, sailing it's not very easy to really make it a complete profession. For a large number, out of 100 sailors, I can probably see only 1 or 2 of them making it a profession. So education also becomes important for the Balance 98. And therefore, what's your opinion on
that? I don't have an opinion as a suggestion, but there are plenty of examples of sailors, as Lily. She said in her webinar that actually after 10 years when she was 10, she quit studying. So she's from China, so it's a little bit different system and so on, but she actually devoted herself completely into sailing. And now she's an Olympic medalist, and she has a career, she's a celebrity and so on. So at some stage when she was already teenager, she started to, no, not teenager, when she was older, like 20 something, she said she was starting to get back to study. In her perspective, that's a way to live, because she made that medal and she was successful. In my career, I was going all the way with studies. So I'm actually a master engineer at the moment, and I studied geodesy, which was not easy. But I can tell you that when I was studying geodesy, I wasn't making results. So it's easy to tell you exactly if you see that your kid has a big potential, or you are willing to sacrifice a period of time. Great, it should do it. So sorry. Long story short, if you see, for example, that the kid is very good in what he's doing, give the time, big time, like 4 years, and let's see what's going to happen. If there is completely no improvements and so on, then maybe it's a time to get to study again and to treat sailing as a hobby.
Sure, thanks. Maybe I'll add a couple of things to this, and as far as the Indian situation is concerned, I personally feel that with the academics and the education, from my experience for the last 30, 40 years, the academics is and the further education and stuff like that is so much more important than sailing. Now, you can sail well, but can you make it a career in India, or from India, can you make it an international career? I think I have seen few and far between being able to do that, apart from those who are still, so to speak, slightly focused on all that from the army and the navy. But then getting into the army and the navy is, well, it requires a lot of effort. Having said that, I think academics should definitely play a huge role in furthering the career of your sailor, and as a solid backup, unless you have extremely deep pockets and you want to finance the entire career of your sailor child. Next question is, some sailors, when it comes to the optimist level, some sailors simply are not in a position to put on the kind of height and weight required for classes ahead. So how do parents deal with that kind of a situation? If let's assume a child remains at about a much lower height, at about 5 feet, and then the weight is much lower also. So does not cross, let's say, 55, 57 kilos. And how would a parent handle that?
I'm very sorry, but I had a glitch again. Can you shorten and repeat?
Yeah, if I think there is a bandwidth problem today, but if parents notice that their children are not gaining the kind of height and weight required for the next class, graduate from the optimist, what's your advice? I mean, in fact, even for the 29er, you need about 60 kilos. How do you handle situations like that?
There are plenty of classes in sailing which you can choose, right? Even in India, you have plenty. And you should, quicker you realize the kid is not meant to be a sailor or an optimist, you should make that change. You should discuss it with the coach, with the club, with the association, whatever, and then make that change. I was waiting on 470 too long, and I'm an example of I lost a year completely because I was too heavy. We were too heavy, sorry. We were too heavy with my friend, with my crew, and nobody told us actually we should switch. And we continued 1 full year on 470 when we were 10 kilos more than average weight. So that was a mistake. And I'm advising you not to make that mistake and just to switch. Consult it with the coach. Coach will always tell you what the possibilities are in your club.
Sure, thanks. One last question. It's a personal question. What's your personal preference, Tom? Younger sailors or older sailors? Top level champions or younger sailors with greater potential? So the first thing is younger sailors or older sailors. As a coach, what would you prefer?
I'm sorry, there was a glitch again, so you have to repeat.
Yeah, I think today your signal is really bad, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
So what's your personal preference, working with much younger sailors in the, let's say, the 9 to 15 bracket, or working with older sailors in top classes?
I don't think I get the question. Can you, what's my personal, but what's the difference, or?
What's your personal preference? Do you feel coaching younger sailors is more satisfying, or do you feel coaching older sailors is more satisfying?
I prefer to stick with the older ones, probably because I just quit sailing. So I think I have a little bit more fresh knowledge and experience in Olympic sailing just from recent years, and I can transfer it to seniors. But I was also working with kids, and that's a beautiful thing. So it's up to the coach how he feels. But I have also examples of fantastic people and friends who are just sticking to kids, and actually every kid that works with that person it's a little bit like my coach. So it's just spark inside, inspired. That those people are very necessary to work, that have that positive attitude to work with kids. So that would be my answer.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. I think that'll be the end of this session, and we have another session which I will throw onto your screens very soon by Julia Smith, Polish sailor, 420 sailor, twice ISAF world champion, and she's going to come up on Saturday, and not Friday, not tomorrow, but on Saturday at 11 a.m. So before you leave the screens, I will be throwing that slide onto you, and we can. Thanks very much, everybody, for being with us, and stay with us. More and more of this stuff coming on. On Sunday, we have the entire journey, Goa to Goa, of the Tarani, and there are going to be 7 girls who went around on the world on this circumnavigation. They will be coming on Sunday, so stay with us. Thanks, and bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.